Welcome, everybody, to Star Trek Recovery. My name is Tom. I'm a recovering Star Trek addict.
Hello, Tom.
I'm stuck watching Lower Decks. With me is the boss man, Andre.
Greetings. At least you're not alone. We're all in this together.
That's what you keep telling me. Rob is also with us, the voice of Midnight's Edge.
How's it going, everybody? My name is Rob, and I watch Star Trek Lower Decks.
You think you can quit any time, right?
It's a 12-step program, Tom. The first step is admitting that I'm powerless over it.
Yeah. And why are you powerless over it?
Because you're making me watch it, Andre.
I wish we're still checking into.
We have the epiphany, so that's good.
We're pretty sure it's against any kind of laws in the Geneva Convention and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, at step 2, I'm ready for step 3 now.
Oh yeah. No, but as I said, we're all in this together. None of us wants to see this, but we do it all for you guys, so you don't have to. And speaking of you guys, greetings everyone in the chat.
Hell, got Cosmic Squirrel. We got Yuri Boulderik. Is that how you say that? Probably. Silver Nova from Australia. G'day. Keith Hopper, Jonathan Lopez, Lost Jedi. Greg, how you doing? Donnie Pearson, Mecca's hanging out in the chat. Welcome, welcome. T. Stoney, Daniel Hall. Greetings, everybody. Darklight Zero, Hoyer, Cracker Jack. That name's problematic, Jack. We also had a super chat from Stargate 404 before we started. Says, what Cap waits till weapons are disabled to fight? Yeah, we will probably discuss that as we get into the episode. Where do we begin with this one, guys?
Well, we can begin with the second super chat that we got from Polaris Sucks, who sent us $2 Canadian. Love the channel. Thanks.
There it is.
Thank you.
It finally popped up.
Then we're caught up. Okay, guys, you know what? I'm going to start with something positive. This episode, for the first time, actually had me laugh a little bit. I was like surprised. It was like in the very intro when they're all making the warp engine sounds. I was stupid as hell. But then came like the guy who thought that they were possessed or taken over by some alien or something and called for help. That was pretty cool. That actually made me chuckle out loud. And then I was surprised, like, what the hell just happened? So that was cool. And also the Bajoran security guy, he was like, again, he really wants to blow up the warp course. It was kind of like funny when he asked the captain, can we please blow up the warp core? I've been really good this month.
That's actually not bad, yeah.
There was a few bits. I will say that this
funny.
This was actually not the worst episode. There were bits, pieces, moments, things I didn't hate. There was story aspects I didn't dislike. I was just talking to Rob before you come in, Andre, and I was just saying how it almost felt like they slowed it down a little bit.
Yeah.
Like they were hearing that people obviously, or maybe they got to that point where like, oh, this is just too slapdash, Nickelodeon style, high octane kids show animation. And they seemed, maybe it's just me, but it seemed like they slowed it down just a smidge this episode, or maybe more than just a smidge.
I don't know. I thought the rest of the episode was really stupid, but I will give credit.
I'm not talking about stupid. I'm talking about the speed. Like, how it was always a mile a minute and people talking over each other. And,
I agree. They've toned that down. Thank freaking God. I mean, because I like my recurring thing has like, they should be a little bit more Norwegian, be a little bit more dead inside, every single one of them. And they appear to be listening because they're still on speed, every last one of them. But at least they have cut down the amounts, and that's a start.
That's what I'm saying. I could actually hear the lines of dialogue without another, thing happening. I can tell you what happened in the episode. I kind of knew what was going on for the most part. Again, this is with a big old fucking asterisk, like you were saying. It doesn't mean it's smart. It's still stupid. And there's a bunch of problems here throughout the entire thing, but I'm giving it the best I can give it at this point. It's like that kid that keeps fucking up, but you've got to try and give them at least a little bit of credit when they do something, somewhat right. You know what I mean? Like, you're rooting for the kid. You want him to do right. You can't just sit there and point out all the bad things all the time.
I have to give some motivation.
Exactly, yeah.
And credit where credit is due. This was the episode as a whole was still hot garbage, but there were elements of it that go in the right direction.
Well, let's talk about those elements right away, because I will say this one thing that stuck out to me was, again, with Cyborg Kid, everything they keep doing with him, that's the right direction.
Yeah.
Why do they not keep getting that? Like the whole thing with him and the simulation, that whole business, I loved that whole bit. Now the blood thing got a little overboard, but that's the kind of thing this show should be.
Yeah. It's because he is probably the most Star Trek character on the whole show. I mean, attention to detail, loves his job, loves his duty, loves engineering, and he finds solutions to problems.
Well, him and the green chick are also the most well-rounded characters so far in the show, too, in that sense.
But the other thing, too, is I'm noticing a pattern with him. He tends to find solutions that are in his wheelhouse. He uses his brain to try and find a solution to the problem rather than just standing around wait for someone else to do it. I mean, with the whole thing and changing the environments on the holodeck, and going to a Bajoran, converting it to a Bajoran market. Now, when Badgie, which is obviously supposed to be like Clippy, remember the Microsoft clip?
Yeah, I was thinking that too. That was kind of funny, actually.
And I can't think of the comedian's name, but he was on like 30 Rock and a few other things. He's actually pretty good that they got doing the voice of him. Yeah. But yeah.
I mean, they went a little overboard with him ripping people's heads off.
That's what I'm saying. I liked the idea, but
this is Kurtzman Trek. So what do you expect?
Yeah, it just went little step too far. But yeah,
this is the same Kurtzman Trek that has severed baby heads. So there's that.
It's still Kurtzman Trek, though, Captain Robert. I know you're trying to convince yourself that he has nothing to do with it, but you're so very wrong.
It still has his stink all over it. I hate to say guilty by association.
To be fair, though, this is one where he's going to give like some general mandates. Like
he's the least connected to.
Yeah.
But...
Yeah, and then other than that, they're like, yeah, fine, whatever. Just make sure you do this, and this, and then that, this, and this, and this. That's a problem, or at least a big part of it.
I can picture Chris. Make sure you tear the guy's head off. Make sure there's lots of blood, and make sure you at least 25% different. Okay, that's. So the I did, and what the other thing though?
You forgot the sand.
One of the other things I did kind of like that people are starting to talk back to Mikey Spock 2.0. They're starting.
They're making her character a bit more. I didn't hate her character as much.
A bit less insufferable.
Yes.
But they're still making sure to tell you how awesome she is.
I kind of liked. I'm not okay. I should rephrase that. I'm not gonna say I liked. It was a bit of a surprise that they actually found a way to make that other. I can't remember the dude's name. The curly-haired guy that was covering for him.
Fletcher.
He was really annoying.
He was annoying, but like I give him credit that it didn't go to the place I thought it was going to go, but it went off the rails by the end of it. Now the whole thing at the end with how it worked out was pretty lame. So that's why I wouldn't say I liked it. So like, but I will give them some kind of credit for, again, putting, this is the kind of thing that this show, for the most part, was what the show should be aiming to be. Like it's finally getting the idea of what it should be, the secondary characters. Now, granted, we kept jumping to the main bridge, and that's where some of the laughs were. I agree with Andre. Like I've been really good this month. Like that was one of the better lines and stuff like that. But again, like, is this where we should keep going? Like, should we ever see the main bridge really in this show? I mean, that's kind of where I'm getting at. Like, because really the heart of the show should be all the stuff we don't get to see is the action, all that kind of stuff. The stuff we should see is all the secondary stuff. Yeah.
The decisions on the bridge should impact the lower decks crew, but you really should not be too focused on the bridge or those characters. Calling down from the bridge once in a while, maybe, I think that would have been more effective, but like I'm a writer, but
no, having her connected to them being her mom running the ship and all that, I think that's just a little too,
that's really on the nose. You know what it kind of should be? Like every single time when the captain just says, give me more power, right? And they're like, can't be done. Like what the series should be is kind of like, then you see down in the engineering, and you basically have like the head of engineering who is then barking orders, do this, do that, and everyone is like working their ass off. They're like, yes, we were able to squeeze another 5% out of the machine. Not good enough, do it again, we need 5 more. And that's kind of like what it needs to be. It needs to be so like a little bit more like the nuts and bolts of it. What goes behind all the orders?
Yeah.
But again, that's like fundamental with what the series could have, would have, should have been, which is not going to happen. Given the series that we are getting, which, to be fair, we probably never should have gotten in its current form. But at the very least, I know that some people out there, like some friends of ours, are thought that this episode was the worst yet, and I agree. It had kind of like the worst subplot with like this guy that seemed so amazing and such like a team guy and everything, and he was completely useless. There are some good corporate management lessons from that, which actually you can apply to a real life situation in any work environment. So there's something to that, but still, that came off a little bit flat to me. But still, to me, this wasn't the worst episode. This was one of the better, and especially because of the characters. I'm so glad. Like, I could watch this episode without having my pulse rise, just from sheer annoyance with everyone being on uppers the whole time.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't watch it on by choice, but again, this is
terrible. I'm not saying that, but
this is the least egregious one we've had yet, if that's the best way to put it, or however to put it.
I would say that, least grievous.
I mean, again, I see like Greg the Lost Jedi 22 saying, this is the worst episode he saw, and that's fair. I mean, it is. There's so much shit in it that if we sat down but maybe I'm just like a beaten wife at this point. That like
it's Stockholm syndrome at this point.
I mean, because again, like the main, I guess, because like I was saying, going back to what I was saying before about that Fletcher character, because like Script was like saying in the chat, he should have been a cautionary tale to Mariner or whatever, which he kind of was. They kind of did that in this, but they didn't do it quite right. Instead of the way it was set up and what it should have been is. It was more like I thought they were going to go on a place like, oh, he's being nice to all these guys all the time, and then when he's going to need something, they're all going to blow him off, and then he's going to turn into a dick because of it. And they kind of went like in several other directions, so I gave him credit for not taking the typical road traveled, I guess. But again, we're getting into subversion of expectations, which I point out, like many others have already, that subversion is not necessarily a good word. So there you go. I think it was Cameron Prosher who was the first to point that out. So
about that, though, I know this is going to be really controversial with many here, but the ending with what happened with the guy, again, just applying to my own background in corporate and stuff like that, I thought that was a really good lesson. Sometimes you are promoted beyond your abilities, and when you're promoted beyond your abilities, you're not going to last long, and then it's not back to your previous position, it's out the door.
What's the saying? People rise to their level of incompetence.
Yeah, but you have to be above a certain level to actually stay at that level. If you're still on like a fairly junior thing, and you raise from a really junior thing to a slightly less junior thing, and you can't hack that, you don't stay there. You're out the door. Like, you have to be pretty senior before you stay at your highest level of incompetence. Juniors don't have that luxury.
And Cavino or Cavitino, how do you say that, Rob?
Cavitano.
Cavatano Shea. Yeah, that's who I meant. Jack McBrayer from 30 Rock. That's who did the voice of Shieldy, or what was his name? I don't remember.
I've never
Badgie.
Badgie, yeah, Badgie. Shieldy. Might as well be Shieldy.
Honestly, I don't know a name of a single one of the characters.
I know. I
remember
keep
they
calling
were
them by their nicknames. So
you know,
yeah.
that's a good point, though, Andre. I mean, because this show, I hate to say it, it's not meant to be forgettable, but it's kind of designed to be in one ear and out the other.
Yeah, kind of. There's no two ways about that. Because but again, this is like a hallmark of Kurtzman Trek, isn't it? We have like the same thing with Discovery. It took like until the second season before the characters even got the name for the most part.
Well, you didn't like the names we made up? LeBron, Mrs. T.
No.
I swear we're the
I
reason they
love
did
the
that
names,
fucking roll call. I know that's why they did that roll call episode, Andre. Is because we made up their fucking name.
Yeah.
Well, of course, my favorite, Not Sulu.
Not Sulu, Mrs. T.
Lisa Left Eye.
Who she actually liked her nickname, by the way.
Yes, I get it. I always say whenever it comes up, Emily Coates, if you're out there listening, you know you're a good sport for liking that, and she thought it was kind of catchy. So, I appreciate that you weren't.
And she set less fires.
Yeah, and she took it in good nature. So, thank you.
Yeah. No. She's best part of the cast. Whether she approved or not, she's the best part of the cast. But still, we basically had to come up with the names before anyone in the production gave them names. And it's like similar here. Yeah, we know that these characters have names, and maybe it's just me, but I'm struggling to recall what the hell they are. Yeah,
it's the same thing. It's Mikey. It's Mikey Spock Jr., Green Tilly, Geordie LaForgery. I mean, it's the same idea now.
Yeah.
Well, and the other thing is like, I mean, I've never even really watched Voyager and DS9 all that much, but I know the characters, they transcend that much. Like when you guys mention the characters, at least I know who these people are. I know who Cisco, Janeway, all that kind of stuff is. These characters, Mariners, I guess I can kind of know his name now. Mikey Spock 2.0, I can hardly ever remember her name half time. I still couldn't tell you what Cyborg Kid or Green Lady's name are. But again, like I said, those two characters, the latter two, are the ones that have had the most, I guess, the best writing so far. I mean, I feel like I felt bad for her at the end of that one episode, and I did like the little meet cute kind of episode this was too. The moments it had, it's not obnoxiously overboard. There's at least something there. They're doing their best to try and make these characters likable, and you've seen that a lot with Mikey Spock 2.0 in this episode.
I'm not going to say that I like her, but I like her more now.
Yeah, they made her more likable. I didn't say she was. I liked her, but yeah.
It's a step in the right direction. Absolutely a step in the right direction.
They still go out of their way to remind you that she's so great, but hopefully we're going to see her fail badly at some point.
It's so pathetic when even the other characters have to tell her that, we know you're the space hero and everything, but my God, like when do you do that? When does that ever happen? You know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of Game of Thrones back when it was good, when the king, the Lannister king, told Joffrey that any man who has to say that he is king is no true king. And here the writers have to constantly remind us how awesome this character is supposed to be, what space hero she is. Like really hammering the point all the time. That's because she isn't. But
Dr. Meatball asked a question here. He wants to know what aspects of the episode did we like the most. I'm gonna say the like you said before, Andre. I think the biggest laugh was between "I've Been Good This Month" And really, a properly placed fuck you or fuck can make you laugh really well. And even though it was bleeped out, when he was like, when they were talking back and forth, and he's like, fuck you, and he hangs up or whatever, that actually kind of did make me chuckle a bit.
Yeah, never underestimate the effectiveness of a well-placed F-bomb. And the fact that it's censored makes it funnier too.
Sometimes, in this case, I think it would have been funnier if it wasn't. This time it was a bit more distracting than it was, because the point of it it was the properly timed the way it would have been. I think it would have been funnier without the bleep. That's just me personally. I know you're a bleep person, so we're not going to get into that argument. But what was your favorite part then, Rob?
I really didn't have a favorite part. I'm struggling to try to remember. The Cardassian guys say, "Oh God, let me please blow up the warp core." I'm like, that was pretty good. Evasive pattern Sulu Delta. I'm like, oh come on. He's just like so frustrated. Oh come on, because he wants to blow up something really bad.
Yeah, and then when he got the opportunity, it was too late.
Yeah, that is probably my favorite character so far. Yeah. He's maybe laughed the most. Yeah,
let's send that guy out on an away mission with a couple other people. I mean, that I think would be funny.
Andre, what about you?
Yeah, for me, it's going to be basically similar to what we said already. I think that the humor actually worked a little bit more, because this episode, all of us, we can like mention now 3, 4, 5 things that actually hit the mark. That's a first. So that's one thing, the humor. And 2, it's the characters. They have reduced their dosage of amphetamine. So good on them, because now they're slightly more tolerable. And the third, I liked the lessons as pertains to acting professional at your job, taking responsibility for when you muck up, and don't try to cover it up, because very often it's not screwing up in the first time that gets you into trouble. It's the covering it up.
And we got a super chat, but I want to do this one first. Pula Zenda says, sounds like you guys are starting to enjoy it. I wouldn't go to that extent. This is just basically like when you have a really shitty job to do, and you just start to think about the aspects that you don't hate so much, just to try and remind yourself that it's not, to get through it. Like I mean, I'm not trying to like even compare this to anybody who has to do like some kind of manual labor or anything like that. But it's just one of those things, like a doctor's appointment, or a dentist appointment. Does that help? Like you got to get through it. But
it's like when I got my colonoscopy.
I get to stop at McDonald's afterwards, maybe get an ice cream cone, maybe, kind of thing. I don't know.
Yeah, exactly, Tom.
So you start to think about the positives instead of concentrating on the negatives so much.
Yeah. And when the doctor comes in and says, you have a perfect ass, I'm like, thank you. I have scientific proof now. So then you go out, then you go to Dunkin' Donuts, you get yourself a huge bagel and cream cheese. You're like, oh, so worth it. So worth it.
We know what Rob does after his visits now. Mr. Wolverine 007, good friend of the channel. Thank you so much. Says $5 super chat. First half of this episode actually made me start to think they were on the right track. Then it fell apart with the plots. Yeah, I think you just kind of summed up all of our review of this episode in those two sentences right there. Yeah.
But that's the thing though, Tom. There's you get glimpses of what this show could be. Just very briefly, you get glimpses of what it could be. It could be really good. It could be, but it's not, at least not yet. And that's kind of the frustrating part. Like they take one step forward and 3 steps back.
But you know what the beauty is? Now we get glimpses. Did we get glimpses before?
I'm
going to say we didn't, not really. So this is a huge step in the right way.
There was moments on Discovery with Pike and stuff that felt Trekky.
Yeah, that's true. But I will say that we have gotten more glimpses of real Star Trek in this than any other Star Trek on CBS All Access.
You're probably right. Especially, at least, here's the thing. I can say so far out of the 6 episodes now? Yeah, we're on 6. At least 3 or 4 of these plots, or at least some of the subplot lines, are things that I could see in other Star Trek shows.
Yeah.
So on that point, you're right. I'm hard pressed right now to think of any of the plot lines in any of the other Star Treks that we've seen to this point from Kurtzman Trek that I feel like could have been other Trek episodes aside from what, maybe that one episode of Star Trek Discovery. Because I remember that was like the seventh or eighth. Which episode did they go to that one planet? And they had the conductor thing, because I think that was the one that we kept saying like, this one felt like it could have been a Trek episode, but then this happened or something like that. But I don't remember anymore. But
Discovery is all blended into like one big.
That's the
mass.
problem.
I don't recall. I can't separate one episode from the other in my memories.
There was one moment of Discovery that felt like Star Trek when somebody was in the sick bay and they were examining him and the doctor was examining him and Lorca was actually showing some genuine concern for one of his crew, and they were talking about what could be wrong, how do we handle it, and I was just saying, hey, wait a minute, when
Pike first came into,
I was like, when did Star Trek actually happen on this show? Then they had to ruin it by snapping a guy's neck.
Yeah, and then when Pike had a few moments there, it felt like that he kind of was like I kind of first remember the first couple bits with him.
When Pike first came on board, and then he brought up his dossier, and he said something like, "See that? I failed astrophysicist or whatever it was." All right, they're humanizing him. He has shortcomings. And that when he was given the speech to sort of get the crew behind him, like, okay, you know what? That's actually a pretty good moment.
I remember giving him credit for the belly laugh out of that, because he's like, "Where's my red thing? Where's my goddamn red thing I was promised?" or whatever it was, or whatever it was that one episode. But yeah, that's all I remember, other than baby heads and
that's all we get. We get
rape.
Yeah. Oh God. Oh. And the worst part about it is when they go do the baby heads and the Klingon force, unwanted physical contact, because I really should be saying that word because the YouTube gods may smote us. It's like they go, but they want to be Game of Thrones in space, but they can't follow through. And this just makes no bones about it. He goes, you know what? We're not even going to try. We're just going to try it. We're going to try to be Star Trek, but they're coming up short. But I can kind of see, like the one kid who, like Tom, you'll know, like you play Little League. That one kid who keeps striking out, but he shows up to practice every day. He works hard.
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah.
No, you know what this is? This is them forcing Star Trek to go through a transition.
You think it's gonna turn a corner after this?
No, I mean literally like a transition.
Oh, like male to female. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Transition from something good into overt political propaganda, you mean?
Yeah, they're turning it into a blue-haired whale.
Yeah.
Oh boy, that ain't good. I am Captain Ahab.
It just doesn't want to let it be. Can't let it be the fat nerdy kid. Nope. It's got to make it.
Well, they're trying
something
to.
That's not.
They're trying to. This has been the problem since 2009. They're trying to make Star Trek cool. They're trying to make Star Trek for the cool kids, and Star Trek has never been cool. But it's always embraced the fact that it's never been cool. Like, hey, you're one of the kids. You're one of the nerdy kids. Hey, we got a place for you. See, okay, come on. See, you're welcome here. But now, like I said, they're the ones that think they're going to come along and throw the nerdy kid into the locker. That's who they're making Star Trek for. They're making Star Trek for the quote unquote cool kids, and like I said, they're trying to be everything but. And we've covered this ad nauseum. This is trying to be Rick and Morty. Discovery's trying to be Game of Thrones. Or badly trying to be Game of Thrones.
We have no idea what the fuck Picard was supposed to be, other than white man apologizes for everything.
I'm sorry. The white man apology tour. Yeah, that's all it's supposed to be. Yeah.
I feel like Patrick Stewart really owes us an apology tour right now for actually permitting that thing to be made and soiling the legacy of not just his own character, but next generation in the process.
That would mean he actually gave a shit in the first place, though.
No, you see Donnie Pearson now. Donnie Pearson says in the chat, Can you bring up that quote, Tom, from Donnie Pearson? Respectfully, Rob, Star Trek is cool for me. and fun as well for all ages. But the perception of Star Trek was, it's cool for you, fine, it's great, it's cool for me too. But the perception to the larger public was that it's this thing for nerds, it's this thing for geeks, it's this thing for guys with thick glasses and are awkward.
I didn't mean it in a derogatory way.
No.
I meant it in the sense of that they can't let something be what it is. That's the whole thing, is these people are supposedly like, let me be me, let me be whoever I need to be or want to be or feel I am. But they have to feel like they have to change everything else.
Yeah, they can't just let it be Star Trek, is what it is.
Exactly. Like Star Trek was not, the high octane, blockbuster Star Wars thing. It was this niche, like I said, it was a thing for the nerdy kids. It was the reason why comic book conventions and sci-fi conventions exist. You know what I mean? There wasn't that many. The reason they had conventions, the whole point of that is you didn't have enough of your friends around that were really into that shit. So you had to find friends throughout the world because the internet didn't exist then. You know what I mean? So it was like, oh, well, we know there's got to be more fans out there. Let's start this thing and we'll get to meet people and, network. And, that's where it all kind of started. And, there's a lot of ways where you can almost say, like, if it wasn't for, Star Trek starting like the fan conventions and all that kind of stuff, we wouldn't have like forums and chat rooms and shit like this, what we're doing right now. In a lot of ways, I don't think. I mean, there's a lot of things you can credit to it. I mean, but them coming in and changing it into something it's not is exactly the problem. This all goes back to Patient Zero with J.J. Abrams trying to make it Star Wars.
Yeah, pretty much.
And that's why I feel comfortable making the transition metaphor for it, because it's true. It's really true. It's like they're coming in and literally forcing these franchises to have a transition. It's akin to basically forcing your kid into transitioning from a girl to a boy or a boy to a girl or whatever you want to call it, against their will. That's the way I see it. That's the way they've destroyed these franchises at this point. I mean, what's left of this anyway? What happens tomorrow, even if they did fire Kurtzman? That's the big question. I'm asked that question probably more than anything on any of these podcasts. Do we really think that it's going to survive? Is there anything they can do to fix it?
I have some thoughts on that. My first thought is to say thank you to Sister Harrow, who sent us $10. Thank you so much. Much appreciated.
From
always.
Australia. Yeah. All the way.
And other than that, I think that it can be saved, as in it can carry on, but I don't think it can ever be what it once was. Same thing with Star Wars, incidentally. There's also a future for Star Wars, but that future is as like a Disney Plus series and one genre thing among a million others. But it has no future as the event thing that brought people together that it once had before. That's over. And same with Star Trek, that it's going to be like this huge institution within the fan community. That's also over, I think. There's a way forward where you can still have Star Trek, but it's not going to be like any bigger than Warhammer 40k or any other thing that has come later. That's what I think the future is. Niche. Much more niche than it's ever been before.
What about you, Rob? You think they can actually save this thing? Think there's a chance?
I think it's going to take a Herculean effort to save. I mean, and just... Well, they're on the right. Like I said, you get glimpses, but that's all you get is glimpses. It's going to take a Herculean effort to save it. I mean, Lower Decks fortunes goes as Discovery goes. I mean, that's the thing. uh, we've gotten ratings from Canada. The ratings aren't good from what I hear, right? Isn't that correct?
Yeah, we haven't seen any ratings for a while, but last we checked, they weren't any good. And for what it's worth, it still has no international distribution. So it's still a North America exclusive.
And
Or has that changed without me noticing something?
Well, with Lower Decks, no. With the STD Season 3, they finally did announce.
I'm talking about Lower Decks.
Yeah, Lower Decks still doesn't have a distributor. My answer to this is I think no. I think it's beyond repair. I think that the sign that this was done for, that the final nail in the coffin was driven, was with Picard. The moment when McFarlane Toys pulled out and you could get the toys on clearance, and it wasn't just Discovery toys or something like that. No, this was flat out Picard and Kirk toys on clearance.
Yeah,
I think that's it.
Yeah,
I think it's dead, and I think Star Wars is a prime example of how you can do this and how it can kill something. And it's, I don't know. I mean, Star Wars is a little bit bigger, and there's a chance to rekindle that fire. I don't think there is with Star Trek. And we have a Mecha Random here since we've been too positive about this. I thought maybe we'd.
Needing me to rip it a new one.
Yeah, I think that was the idea.
I just found this. I don't know if these are the ones we already have from August. What is it? 24th is the most recent ratings for it that I can find. But yeah, they're not.
You'll have
great.
to share anything if you're going to share it, because I'm on Firefox right now. So.
All right, let me screen share so you can see it here. I don't know if this is the one we already. I can't. Like, all the weeks blend together.
Does it say which episode it is though? That's
it's the episode that aired between the 24th and the 30th. So in Canada, they got 502 million viewers. So about 500,000 viewers.
500, yeah. That would be the one episode.
That's the one
4,
I think
then.
we already.
Yeah, I think that's
the one
that's just the most recent that they have posted. So
because we ended up getting it, I think, like a week early, and it was the numbers we got were the same as this, but we were 100 off. But I think we've gotten about a half a dozen reasons why we could have been 100 off, 100,000 off.
Yeah, they're the problem with Lower Decks that I think that nobody wants to, like, even people who want to like it, and that's fine if you want to like it. There's nothing wrong with liking what you like. But the issue for me that I think they can't fix on Lower Decks or are unwilling to is that it's the same thing with Ghostbusters 2016, where every few minutes, only it's worse, only it's amplified to like 1 million, right? Where every few minutes they go out of their way to remind you of Star Trek. They go out of their way to remind you of something better in Star Trek. And they're so dead set on trying to make Lower Decks into Rick and Morty or Venture Brothers or any of these things that Star Trek isn't. And they think that because Big Bang Theory was very popular, that you can just shove reference on top of reference on top of reference. And I know
it still is pretty popular. In fact, obviously repeats are more popular than Star Trek Lower Decks.
Oh, absolutely.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. But...
Yeah, they're number 14 and Lower Deck. Yeah, they're number 14, 17, 18, and Lower Decks is 22. So Big Bang Theory beats it like 3
repeats of Big Bang Theory. Yeah. And I want to introduce somebody who's never been on the channel before, but I've been on plenty of shows with him. Here's somebody who was just recently in the chat said it was the worst episode of Star Trek Discovery or Lower Decks so far. Sorry, I almost called it Discovery.
I think it was.
Lost Jedi, Mr. Greg. How you doing?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
I hang out with him on the Geek Blend, and you have your own channel, obviously. But yeah, first time on the channel. Welcome.
Thank you.
So you also thought this was the worst episode ever. So now we have two people here who are a little bit different view from the three of us. Normally it's the other way around. We're trying to find people who are more positive, but I think right now we wanted to get a little bit more of the other viewpoint here on this matter. So let's start with Mecha. What overall was the worst things? What made you think this was the worst episode?
I watched it 3 times and I can't remember what happened. I had to record my review 3 times just to even remember what went on in this. Every time I would sit down and try and watch it, I would just drift and want to watch anything else. I would get in Twitter fights. I would want to do anything but watch this. And when it can't even hold my attention long enough for me to be angry at it. There's not even anything overwhelmingly cringeworthy, like a Spock going, "I like science." There's nothing that pulls me into it just to say, "What the crap was that?" So there's not even anything that can get me in the unintentionally funny or so ridiculous that there's not the Basmati Blues effect in Lower Decks, and that's why I think like Star Trek Discovery season 2 is probably the least, or it was the most entertaining of all the modern Star Trek that we've gotten, and it was terrible.
Have we coined a new phrase, the Basmati Blues effect? That's something
I think so. There's something so bad. It's
unintentionally hysterical.
Yeah, unintentionally hysterical.
Is it maybe the problem, Mecca, that this is the fact that it isn't, how do I put this? All the things that you just said, like it isn't that B movie bad, like that Plan 9 from Outer Space bad.
Yeah.
Is it more like, is it getting to the point where it's almost like picking on like the slow kid at school or something like that? Like you realize you're just being a dick at some point?
Yeah, kinda, because
they're trying, but it's just not working.
It's like they're phoning it in. It's like they're going out of their way to find all of these really deep cut references, or I think they're just getting them by accident on some of them. Like what kind of sounds like a thing that you might remember hearing in Star Trek 20 years ago, and then they throw that in as a reference. And I've just been having more fun. Like you said, it's like a job that you do where you're just kind of saying, what can I do to make this job go by quicker? So all I do is just count the references lately. It's just, oh, here's a reference, here's a reference, here's a reference, here's something that looks like a reference. And it's almost impossible to pay attention to what they're saying when you're just in this filter of combing through the references because the show is just kind of unwatchable.
Yeah. Well, and this is what I was kind of saying here too before. Sister Hale says I gave up on Star Trek. I think a lot of people have.
Yeah.
Evidently. You can just tell on the merchandise sales or lack thereof for even traditional Trek. Like they lost the fans. Fans walked out.
So Greg, why was this the worst episode in your opinion?
I hated the plot. Like in episode 5, I actually liked the plot because it was an actual mission that they didn't do things to screw it up for themselves and then have to clean up their own mess.
Remind me what happened in episode 5 because I've forgotten. And greetings, by the way.
Hey, Andre. It's nice to meet you.
Likewise.
Episode 5. I'm drawing a blank on the plot because now I keep wanting to.
That was the moon with like the fish people.
Yeah.
That was where
Yeah. It was like it seemed like a Star Trek plot to me that they would have to do some demolition or something and negotiate with the different factions to get the job done. And the ship didn't screw anything up. They just actually completed the mission kind of normal. They had little character moments where they were offbeat and kind of irritating, but it was still like a normal Star Trek plot. It's like, here's the mission in front of us. Let's just go do it. This episode, everything's basically the captain being a complete and total idiot, like the worst captain in the history of Starfleet, probably. Like no decision she makes is the right decision. I hated that. And the episode just was just kind of crazy. It was like, and then this happens, and then this happens. Like, none of it tied together at all. Like the whole holodeck plot line was completely separate and insignificant to the mission. I like Star Trek, like I like the characters, but I want a mission plot. So 5 I actually liked, and then this one was like revert completely back to the other ones where it was just kind of random segments of stuff. It felt very kind of like Family Guy.
Yeah, well, the holodeck. Like the holodeck seemed like it was only there just to cram in references of other holodeck episodes. Didn't they have like 17 in a row or something?
I hate holodeck episodes. Well, I don't hate them. They're probably some of my least favorite episodes in all of Star Trek. So that already kind of put me off.
Well, that's usually because they end up being bottle episodes. That's why. What were you going to say, Andre?
I was going to say that there was one thing that actually really annoyed me with the Hollywood's holodeck. I meant to say there was one thing that really irked me, and that is like when they're escaping Badgie or whatever the hell his name was, and they're in the Bajoran village and they're going up the stairs and they're fine, but Badgie or whatever is really struggling. And they're like, hey, he shouldn't react to the physics, but he actually is. And he has a really, really hard time with these stairs. Fantastic. There he should have said, computer, extend stairs by 25% or something.
Yeah.
Just
make them steeper or something.
Yeah, exactly. But instead he was like, okay, let's change the scenery completely.
Yeah, that was
him
stupid.
away from the stairs. That was so lame.
You go from
That
being
was
clever to
so
stupid
correct.
in like 2.2 seconds. You're right, Andre.
Yeah.
That bothered me too. Because like you're right. Because that was the whole point. Is he's getting tired because he's got short little stubby legs. If they would have just made the stairs even 2 inches wider or whatever, or, like longer, it would make it that and steeper or whatever. That would make it that much more harder for him and not so much harder for them.
Yeah,
Like they wouldn't notice the difference.
Yeah, computer elevate angle of stairs by 10 degrees or something. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, something
exactly.
that wouldn't bother them, but it's obviously going to make him go slower and slower. Yeah. That's thinking like Trek, though.
Yeah.
That's the problem. And Ian Slater brings up a good point here. He goes, I think that the reason these shows are going still is for nihilist entertainment. People watching us go nuts so they feel better or worse. It's sick. Yes and no. You're not wrong. I think when Kurtzman says shit like the agenda comes first, and when these same individuals say shit like we're going to do things on purpose just to make them fucking like Tim Miller, for instance, with the whole thing with Sarah Connor, some of the shit that Ryan Johnson has done. I'm sure you guys could think of a half a dozen other, examples. Brie Larson, where they flat out say they're trying to do this just to piss us off.
Yeah, get some hate clicks, get some hate press.
And they think they're doing it to prove a point that we're nothing but misogynist, racist. And it's like, no, we're pissed because you're just using something we love to further your agenda, and B, you're destroying that said thing at the expense of said agenda. You're not realizing the damage you're doing. It's like Rob always says when his brothers would break his shit and they're like, oh, I fixed it.
Yeah, but you broke it.
I made it better.
Shut up, I made it better.
Yeah, there's so much about that holodeck that I really did not like. Badgie floated when we initially saw him, so I don't know why he's using his legs at all.
Yeah.
Why would the computer disable safety protocols to save power rather than just end the program?
Yeah, that's the other thing that's kind of stupid.
I would imagine that it took more energy for the holodeck
Right.
if you end the safety protocols, because now you're going to have to 3D render so many more things to actually kill you.
Well, not only that, it also shows that they're not thinking like Trek, because like the Fletcher incident that caused the whole problem shouldn't even have been there. Like that was a whole ancillary thing they didn't really need, even though it caused them to the ending to go the way it did. Those are like two different things that shouldn't have been in the same episode, because you've set up yourself with this AI now that is turning around and trying to kill these two individuals. The only way that the scenario you guys are talking about would continue to happen is that Badgie is drawing all the power from everything else in the ship, and they can't figure out where the power is going to, or they can't stop the draw. You know what I'm saying? That's the only way something like that would make sense in a Star Trek world. But they don't think that way.
The computer won't end the program, but it'll allow him to switch the program.
He's in control. Like that's the whole point. They didn't even think of like that kind of far ahead with that kind of a thing. Like you said, the computer would just go, fuck this. We don't need this. This is an ancillary program. Shut down the simulation in the holodeck because it's something that doesn't need to be drawing power right now. But if you're making it to where Badgie is the reason why that is, then it makes sense.
The other thing I really didn't like, so the whole episode, almost the entire episode, they're under at least a yellow alert, right? Because she calls
somebody
alert
brought that up in
as
the chat earlier too. I think that was you.
so
or somebody
yellow alert, and we're still doing choo-choo train dances and having parties in the mess hall where we're dumping food directly from the dispenser into our mouths like it's a frat party. And like I would think yellow alert would cut the power to the holodeck just period as like a normal protocol. So like it shouldn't have even been on at that point. And why does Tendi, who's a medical officer, need to train to spacewalk anyway? Like, why would she be out there lifting the cargo? She's a medical officer. Can she be in sick bay like one episode, please?
Right.
Like, what is she doing? Like, just give her a yellow shirt already and stop. Get rid of that whole thing. Just like reboot her a little bit, because I actually think she's my least favorite character now.
Oh, the doctor.
No, Tendi, the green Orion.
I don't hate her, but
she's so neurotic and so weird and spazzy.
Kind of like the thing is they're trying to make her a counterpart to Cyborg Kid, Rutherford or whatever, and so I get that. Like, I don't have an issue with that so much, but you're right. She needs to have more of her own character. That's for sure. Like, otherwise she's too much like him, and it's almost.
And they need to. I'm sorry. They just need to divide the teams up a little bit too. Like, every episode, it's Mariner and Boimler, and then there's Rutherford and Tendi. Like, switch up the teams a little bit sometimes.
Yeah. Pair Rutherford with Boimler, or pair.
And then Ian finishes off his thought from before by saying something broke in them and we're paying for it. I don't know about that. I think they're just trying to. They feel like they're on the right side of history, and they're trying to use these things to make their point. And that's going to go into our whole Oscar discussion. I think Andre and I are planning on tomorrow. I don't have the details on that yet, but
yeah, we'll see. But presumably tomorrow.
Yeah, and then DJ Robotnik sends in $2. These characters act more like college kids. I think that's the point, and I don't have an issue with, like, that's what I was kind of saying before, is like, these are supposed to be the fuck offs. Like, or we're supposed to see, like Andre was saying, like, you know, like they keep calling down for more power, and we actually get to see what these people go through to give them more power and stuff like that. Like, we should have never necessarily seen all that other kind of stuff, but unfortunately at this point, most of those characters are the most interesting. That's the problem we keep running into.
Here's like the thing that I hate it when people say that we see the fuck ups. No, we don't see the fuck ups. What we see are the ordinary working people that just don't excel. Whereas what we usually do is we see the people that excel. Lower Decks should have just be about the ordinary working guys, the 9-to-5 people that just go in, do their job, but they just don't excel in the way that will make them captains and head of departments and stuff like that. And that's most people ever.
The worker bees. Really,
that's true. I guess Mikey Spock 2.0 is the only one that's really a fuck up.
They're supposed to be kind of the blue collar working class guy and not Animal House.
Yeah, exactly.
No, but it is. I see the dynamic here is Animal House, because you got basically, what is his name? The white kid. Main kid. Boimler. He's basically Flounder. And then you got, what's-her-face, Maki Spock 2.0 is basically... she's
Otter. She's supposed to be Otter.
She's Otterish character. Basically, Tim Matheson mixed with the other character, and then the rest of the character. Like, that's the problem, is they're too much like Animal House. You're right. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, you both got great points there. Captain Spire sends us $5 in STTNG episode Booby Trap. The holodeck shut down because of the power limitations, and Geordi had to actually request power to continue. See, yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
and that's what I was saying, is like the only way to get around that was to make Badgie the cause of the issue in the first place. Like, that would have made more sense. Sister Harrow sends in Australia $5. Says the earlier Star Trek creators gave us the Borg. These idiots gave us what? A space orchid? No, they gave us sound in space too. Don't forget about that.
Oh, the space orchid, though, will never be forgiven. The Borg cube being taken down by flowers is laughable. I remember watching that episode. I just couldn't believe it. I'm like, what?
You have an entire race of androids. So what do? They make a big fucking orchid to protect them.
Imagine how their weed must be.
How their what?
How their weed must be.
Oh, their weed.
Yeah.
You need a cheat right there, Rob.
Oh, sorry. I heard something outside. Hey, Holmes, what's going on now? What was
That's the biggest. That's a joint.
Oh yeah, hey, light this up, man. We're gonna get me high.
I hope your dick's bigger than this. That's a toothpick, man. Anyway, all right, we went off the part because you weren't paying attention. All right. So did we catch up on the super chats? I think so. Yep, that was the last one. Was there any more things you wanted to cover, Andre? I think we about beat this episode to death. We're reaching the hour mark here.
Yeah, I don't think there's much else we have to say about it. Final thing that I would like to say is that for everyone that just have had it with official Star Trek, on Star Trek Day, in which nothing of any note whatsoever was made public, we learned nothing, didn't we?
Yeah, I didn't watch it because I was so busy editing the
I saw
Dune
a little
video, but
I saw a little bit of it. It was a colossal waste of time.
I haven't even watched the trailer yet for Discovery Season 3.
I watched it.
I saw. Okay, tell us, what did we miss?
The only thing I got out of it, other than everything Star Trek is diversity and nothing else. The other message I got, things I learned, that Strange New Worlds is going to be episodic, and Netflix is going to have the international for Discovery Season 3.
But
those are the only two
stuff
things
I
that
kind of
anybody
already
sent
knew.
me. Yeah.
They promised that with Picard in season 2 that it's going to get back. Oh, we're going to get back to Star Trek's roots. It's going to be more episodic.
But the fact that they keep having to say that is them just basically confirming that they fucked up. That's what I don't get. Like
they don't fix
they
it
keep
either.
saying New Hope. It's going to be more hopeful, and it's like, well, okay, in Discovery, you smashed the entire Federation into smithereens, and now you're going to rebuild it, and that's what you're calling hope. That's
Ian says with $2 here. There's
sorry.
No. Finish.
No, go ahead.
No, that was my fault.
Mikey Spock is going to bring us hope. Don't you know that?
Well, yeah, it's like you create a dystopia and then fix it. That's not hopeful. It was good. You destroyed it and then fixed it. But you still broke it in the first place. That's not hope to me when I think of a hopeful, optimistic TV show. It's not something that destroys everything off screen and then repairs it during the season. But Picard did the same thing.
Yeah, they have to break their entire universe just in order to squeeze in their agenda, because that just shows how little it actually belongs in Star Trek. That they have to break Star Trek to cram this outdated, archaic agenda about putting a label on everybody and separating them. It's like, are you really sure you're on the right side of history there, people, by creating segregation and labels? And because I don't want to start wearing a label on my sleeve or on my shirt to tell people what I am, because it's really none of their business. And if they can't tell by looking at me, then who cares, right? Then it's not important. It's not relevant to them. That's kind of where we're headed with all of this stuff. And I don't trust those people who had to break everything in the first place to go and fix it. What is going to be their message in season 3? Because I had people on my Twitter thread talking to me about season 3, and I did watch the trailer and I did kind of break it down, but it still looks like the same action-packed Mikey Spock has a romance garbage that we have, and a bunch of references. Oh, here's a Vulcan. Here's an Andorian. Here's this, whatever. Oh, and we've got our non-binary binars.
Yeah, but the show are like whooping it up too. So I think they're like going to put a little bit of Captain Hillard from Independence Day in there, like trying to make her more of the
inspirational figure.
Well, they've had this. They've had this idea that she's the leader since the first season. Like, they've always kind of thought she was the captain, even though we've been having to tell them, check your military history, because she has a commanding officer. She has a captain every single season. She's gone through a few of them. She's still not the captain. And you are probably going to make her captain now, despite the fact that Saru would probably have seniority and outrank her.
There's probably a few people that would.
Yeah, there's a few people on that ship who would. Even Giorgio, I would probably put in command. Yeah, and then we got Space Hitler on this ship with them for some reason, doing her stereotype.
Yeah, even technically, she would outrank her, even though she's technically not even the right person.
Right? Yeah, she works for Section 31, so she should be in charge.
How many more titles is Space Hitler Giorgio going to get this year? Because they keep adding one. Emperor Augustus, Tiberius, Salasius, Capacious. It's like it's written by Mel Brooks at this point.
Kind of.
Ian Slater says that Sith Weed runs on Windows Vista. I'll take the brand that runs on Windows XP. Thank you. For that matter. Yeah.
And Windows
Captain
7 is my flavor.
Or Windows 7. Which one was better? I don't remember anymore. Garrett Wang, Harry Kim, gave an olive branch to Shatner in Twitter, which William reminded him how Wang historically bashed him. Here's hoping. Yeah, Shatner's old and set in his ways. What are you gonna do?
I don't know. I love William Shatner on Twitter lately.
He's got 0 fucks to give.
Shatner is a national treasure.
Yeah, I like, it's like, hey, you ripped on me. No, you're not forgiven. Like, you bashed me in multiple interviews, and we've had like one interaction. So yeah, I like that Shatner fired back at him. I'm like, your character was like the most pathetic character on a cast of characters nobody cared about.
His character was so pathetic that he actually died and got replaced with his own double from another universe, and no one cared. That's how useless he was.
Yeah, he was just so wimpy. I couldn't get into his character at all. Now, I didn't like Voyager, but Voyager is infinitely better than modern. It's funny. It's like how the prequels got better now that the sequels are out in the Star Wars universe. Like, I look at Voyager in a much higher light than I did before Discovery.
Tom, what do I always say about Captain Janeway and what she would have done to Mikey Spock? She would have sent her to the brig, and she would have spent the next 5 years there. People dump on Voyager, but Janeway was like an exemplary captain. If Mikey Spock dared to question her authority, she would have taken. He goes, She would have taken her into the ready room. I value the input of all my senior officers. But if you undermine my authority on my bridge one more time, you will be confined to the brig for the rest of this journey. Do you understand me? She would have. That's what's missing from modern Star Trek. They want to make we interpersonal conflict. Right? That's interpersonal conflict right there. I mean, it wasn't completely eradicated from Star Trek. But at the same time, it wasn't without reason. You have a character, Mikey Spock, who assaults her captain, starts a war, gets tens of millions of people killed, destroys half the fleet, and they still treat her like she's the smartest mother effer in the room. And she still acts like she's the smartest mother effer in the room. It just infuriates me.
And she's only there on that whole ship because Orca from another dimension or the evil mirror universe had a boner for her. That's the only reason she's even there and not in jail.
So as someone said, he has wood for wood. That's the thing.
Yeah. But I think they're going to turn her character into a more lighthearted character. She's like, in the trailer, she's whooping it up. I think they're going to try. I don't think it's going to translate very well. I don't think the audience is going to buy it, but I think they're at least going to try and make her a more likable, more, I don't know, just more personable person, I guess, instead of just a stick.
Yes. Did Badgie get high? Did he get into the edibles?
I guess this is from a fan film.
They ripped it off?
They ripped it off from a fan film? Oh.
Wouldn't surprise me. They've ripped off everything else in Kurtzman era Star Trek.
What are you going to do, sue him?
Robert, just ask Robert Meyer Burnett how much of his stuff they ripped off. Jeez.
That's not surprising.
Speaking of fan film, guys, before we call it the night, at least for this show, on Star Trek Day, in which nothing of any importance whatsoever was revealed, there was released a fan film, which I'm hearing great things of. We've already linked it to our watch page, or at least to our community page. I promoted it on Twitter. But if you want a fan film that has some decent production value behind it, and that's made with passion and love for Star Trek, then go and check out Star Trek First Frontier for free on YouTube. If you just want something else other than Lower Decks and all of that horrible, horrible stuff. Because right now it's the fans keeping Star Trek alive.
Mm-hmm. See, I gotta put that. See, I got to put that in my Google Notes here that I downloaded, which is a really useful app. I'm not being paid to say that, but it's just Star Trek First Frontier. Okay, gotcha. I'm gonna have to.
Yeah, I'll put the link in the description right now for anyone wanting to see it. So that should absolutely be better than Lower Decks. And as Captain Robert April said, the whole thing is out now on the link that I just put in there. So let's end on a positive note.
Film. Okay, got it. Okay.
I like that. The opening credits are, memory of DC Fontana. That already has me interested.
Mm-hmm. DC Fontana, you take a look at DC Fontana's body of work. She wrote for original Star Trek. She wrote Next Generation. She wrote animation. I think she wrote episodes of like Transformers and G.I. Joe. Did she write He-Man also, Tom, or something like that?
Yes.
She did, yes.
I also sent out a tweet to celebrate Star Trek Day. Would you like to see it?
Absolutely, I would, Tom Shatner.
All right, there you go. I found them a birthday cake.
And another reason why we all love Shatner.
Right there. Really, really, if you look hard, where my ass is usually.
How long did you have to look for it, Mr. Shatner?
Longer than you'd have to look for my ass.
How many candles are on it?
Fuck if I know.
All right. Great William Shatner. Always great when he stops by.
Who says I'm leaving? I'm sleeping somewhere.
Oh, Lord. So I haven't got anything else left to say.
No, I think that's as good a place as I need to leave it. Thanks so much, guys, for joining us. Check out Lost Jedi's channel. Of course, check out Mecha Random. Rob's trying to get his watch hours up. Check out Rob's channel. Of course, don't forget to check out Mead as well. A lot of people forget there is a sister channel. But yeah, we do hang out there and we do a lot of live shows and stuff like that over there as well.
And yeah, check out Tom's new animated short too on
yeah, Bat Tom.
Yeah, it's hysterical.
Oh, that's good.
I finally got a playlist together, so those of you who may not realize, there's actually 5 of those now. So there you go. All right. Was there anything else, Andre, before we check out?
Yeah, no, final thing I want to say is thanks for joining us, everyone. Be sure to check out the videos. We put out a huge Dune retrospective that YouTube isn't doing a very good promoting. So if you like that, then please help share that and any other video that you feel like sharing to your friends. And with that, thanks for having us.
All right. Take care, everybody, and have a good weekend.